Welcome to the Man That Can Project podcast. I'm your host, Lachlan Stewart, and this is episode 493. Today, we're sitting down with country music star Casey Barnes. In this episode, Casey shares his journey from playing at local pubs to winning an ARIA award, which is one of the most prestigious awards you can win in the Australian music industry, the pivotal moments in his career, and his decision to go all in on music. We dive into how he manages the pressures of work and family life, the importance of patience and looking after your health, and the impact of social media in the music industry or on the music industry. So stay tuned for an enlightening conversation around navigating success in the music industry and beyond. But before we dive into today's episode, I have an exciting announcement for you. For those who are ready to take that big leap forward in their life, and that's why I would imagine you're listening to this podcast or you're watching this YouTube channel, is because you want to become the best version of yourself. And I want to introduce you to our Breakthrough Experience, which is a program myself and Brad have created. Now, this is an 8-module online course where we delve into confidence building, productivity enhancement, sleep optimization, and cultivating a sense of purpose. And believe me when I say it's life altering, it is, right? These are the exact same things that I went through. I believe are fundamental things to help you build the platform to change your life. Now, that's not all we're doing. We understand that information is extremely important, but implementation and being around the right people is equally as important, if not more important, because we all, many of you guys listening to this have heard on this conversation many times light bulb moments around what you need to do in order to start moving towards a life that you want, but maybe you don't have the environment there. So when you sign up, if you choose to invest in the Breakthrough Experience, you're also going to receive 12 weeks of access to our weekly group coaching calls with so many incredible men from all around the world who run successful businesses, have incredible families, have unreal health, right? Have results that many blokes aspire to have. You will receive lifetime access to our supportive Facebook community and a ticket to an upcoming event at the moment there in Brisbane only. And you'll also get the comprehensive 12-week strength program from my man, Brad, which is unreal. And as a token of appreciation for your support on this channel, I want to offer you an exclusive 20% discount for being a listener. Use the code TMTCP at the checkout to make this offer available. So remember, TMTCP, that's 20% off the Breakthrough Experience. So you can head over to our website, themanthatcanproject.com, click on the Breakthrough, and you'll see it all there. We look forward to having you and welcoming you into our community. That's enough for me. Let's dive into today's episode. The Man That Can Project podcast, a podcast empowering career-driven men to live more fulfilling lives. We are here to challenge your beliefs, redefine success, and talk about the important stuff in a relatable way. Don't forget to subscribe and leave a review. My name's Lachlan Stewart. Let's get into it. Welcome to episode 493 of the Man That Can Project podcast. We are getting extremely close to that 500 mark. And Casey Barnes has been someone that I've been trying to get on the show for a while now. And to have landed yourself, mate, I'm pretty stoked as a massive country music fan myself. And I love a fucking bucket load of your tunes, especially the new one, Summer Nights, mate. I'm loving it. It's actually the music for my latest Instagram post, so if you go check that out, you'll hear it in the backdrop there. But Casey, let's dive in, mate. We've got so many things to talk about, but firstly, mate, how was Meatstock in Toowoomba?
Meatstock, seriously, could you get a more perfect combination of barbecue meat, beers, country music, and country music fans? It was just the holy grail. It was so good. We had a blast, and we were lucky enough to do it last year as well. And I went into it with no idea what we were in for and was pleasantly surprised. It was just awesome, and even better again this year. So yeah, it was great fun.
Yeah, I as a Toowoomba former or Toowoomba local, I saw the lineup and I was like, oh, we've got to be going to this. But Amy and I already had I can't remember where we were that weekend, but we were spewing. We missed out on that. And then I saw all the footage on the Instagram and I was like, we got to be there next year, 1000%.
It's a
But it
big
looked
one. And Amy would kill it there too. So, yeah, it was a lot of fun.
I'm pretty excited. We're all heading to Perth this weekend, and I was just saying to you, we should have actually done this one in person, but we might be able to get some behind the scenes before it launches on, or for those who are listening, we're catching up before you listen to this on Tuesday. So we'll get
Yes.
some behind the scenes stuff out there. But mate, Casey, I've been following you for a very long time, which sounds kind of weird to say that publicly, but that's
Mate, I've been following you for a very long time in a very, bromancy sort of way. But
yeah,
no,
I guess
I appreciate it.
we can say that without being weird now because of social media. So had we not had
Yes.
social media, it would have been a bit weird. But mate, your career has really inspired me. And as I was saying to you earlier, I guess the theme of where I really wanted to pick your brain was how you've really taken control of everything that you've created. You know, you're one of the most hardworking people I've seen. And, I think we've been friends on Facebook since like 2015. So your hustle, man, and how you juggle the marketing, staying on the pulse of management, all your like your music, your collaboration, and then being a family man, managing your mental health, your physical health. I'm sitting there going, how the hell does this dude do it? Because there's moments where I'm not doing anywhere near as much as you, and I'm steaming, just going, fuck, I need more support here. So before we dive into that, let's go back for those who have never heard of Casey Barnes. Give us a bit of a rundown of who you are and where we are today and how you got here.
Geez, well, I grew up in a little state called Tasmania, down the bottom part of our beautiful country, proud Tasmanian. And I guess that's where my love of music started. I was lucky enough to have a very encouraging family. Mum and dad were right into their music, had an amazing high school music teacher as well. And sort of got me out of my comfort zone. I was pretty shy back in those days, so there was no way I was getting up in front of an audience or anything like that. But he was amazing and got me out of my comfort zone and started playing my first sort of gigs around Launceston. I used to walk to school every day, and there was an Irish pub on the corner which had a blackboard out front. And it used to have, who was playing on different nights of the week. And when I used to walk past that pub, I used to think, if I can get my name on that blackboard, then I've hit the big time. And that was my first ever gig, was at that pub. And at the time, I just thought I'd made it, and that was the pinnacle of my career. And, I think I was only 18. So that was where it all started. And then, yeah, the rest is history. There's so many moments like that one that have happened in my career along the way where things have happened and right people in the right places, and little lucky breaks and a bit of hard work. And yeah, I've been very lucky.
You got probably a really good talking point there. Obviously, you visualized where you wanted to be, and that was like the milestone of the goalpost, so to speak, from the get-go, and then you achieve that. Why wasn't that enough once you'd achieve that? Because a lot of people, I think, miss the idea that goals that we put so much emphasis on and pressure on, it's never enough once we've got there. We're always like, okay, I've ticked that box. I want the next thing. And or if we can understand that idea, we can also shift to go, well, if it's not going to be enough once I get there, I'll appreciate it. But how do I then focus on the journey through the ups and downs on the way there? So for you, once you hit that milestone, what was it that made you go, I want to go bigger?
I guess, probably in my subconscious, I wasn't aware of it then, but in my subconscious from a very young age, I always had a dream of taking it to a really big level. And I always had that vision of playing on a big stage in front of a huge amount of people. And that's what I'd always sort of really wanted, growing up listening to a lot of different artists and idolizing how they went about it and their music and what they did. And, even down to, I've talked about this in radio interviews recently, the ARIA Awards. I used to sit there every year religiously and watch the ARIAs and just dream of going, to the awards and being in the audience and how cool it would be to be in a room with all of these amazing musicians. And then fast forward to winning my first ever ARIA Award. It was just surreal. One of those moments that, you'll never forget. But I guess, with the whole process, you set little goals and you tick them off, and then you go to the next one and you put it out there. And then, when you can tick that off, you sort of keep building and sort of realizing, shit, this is actually working. And I think, I can speak about other specific stuff, but there've been times where I've just gone, okay, I think we're onto something. I think this is working. And yeah, let's keep going and see where we land.
Talk us through winning that ARIA. Obviously, something you'd aspired to always do. What was it like the moment that you first heard your name read out? Were you expecting it, and what sort of went through your head?
Oh, I don't know if we're allowed to swear, but there was a lot of swear words going
Go for
on.
it, man.
I remember I was sitting next to Chuggy, and we all love Chuggy. He's one of the reasons that, you know, I've got to where I am now, and have a lot to thank him for. And I was sitting next to him, and they were reading out the nominees, and with any of these awards things, you never ever have any expectations, because it's the quickest way to get a huge disappointment. So I was just stoked to be nominated, and they were reading out the nominees, and they read out one guy's name, and he got a pretty big cheer in the crowd. And I remember Chuggy sort of leaning over to me and just going, "I think we're fucked here, mate." And so he said that to me, "I think we're fucked." And then so I've just gone, "Oh, great, here we go again." And then when they announced my name, it was just an out of body experience. And I remember walking up to the stage and walking up to collect the award, just thinking, is this actually finally happening, or is this a dream, or is someone going to shake me and wake me up? And it was a weird feeling. But yeah, look, so many years of hard work, you know, 20 years to get to that point, and a lot of disappointments, a lot of setbacks, a lot of times when I thought, man, is this worth it? A lot of sacrifices. But that was like, yeah, to get that was I guess goosebumps, and a lot of people that have been part of that journey, especially my wife and my family. So yeah, very grateful.
You talk about the setbacks and the hard work over that 20-year period, and probably longer. You didn't just pick it up 20 years ago. That's just been, you know, since you've been hustling and really trying to give it a red hot crack. In the lead up to that, did you just go straight from school to full-time being a musician, or did you have a job along the way before you sort of really chase the dream?
It's a good question. Well, I know you're right into your fitness and sport, and you played a lot of rugby. Is that right?
Yeah, played a lot of rugby, mate.
Yeah.
Hence the crooked nose and everything.
Yeah, I totally get it. Actually, I've got a funny story I have to tell you about John Eales. Remind me to tell you that story, because it's a rip.
Mate, let's hit it now if you want.
Oh, well, okay.
So my memory, I won't come back to it. I want to hear it.
Yeah. Oh, you talk about sort of like pivotal moments in your careers and things that happen when you least expect it. So my first CD I got as a kid was Bryan Adams' Greatest Hits. And so I started playing guitar, and I remember sitting in the bedroom learning all the songs off the CD. And fast forward 20 years later, I got an opportunity to do some corporate gigs with John Eales, and I love my sport. So it was a huge, opportunity to meet him. And they were like little gigs that they'd have before the big test matches. Like, so when the Wallabies played the All Blacks, they'd have like a corporate event. The year before, they'd had Pete Murray. He was doing them, and Pete Murray then got signed to Sony, and the rest was history. So I got to Guernsey and got the gig. And I remember after the last one, I went up and shook his hand and gave him my little independent CD and just said, "Look, here's something for you to listen to in the car. Thanks for the opportunity." And that was it. Didn't think I'd hear from him ever again. And then 2 weeks later, I get a random phone call and answered it. And he's like, "G'day, Casey, it's John Eales here. Mate, I just rang you to let you know I've had your CD in the car nonstop. I love it. I want to try and help you." And I was thinking, how the hell is John Eales going to help me with my music career? And it turns out he knows a lot of people. He made a few phone calls. The next thing, a week later, I get another call from the guy who runs A Day on the Green, which most people would know or have heard of A Day on the Green. And they called me to say, "We've got Bryan Adams coming out. Would you like to open for him?" And I thought at the time it was one of those radio prank calls, and we're going to hang up. And it was true. It was the real deal. And I got to open for Bryan Adams, and that just kickstarted everything. That show, those opportunities, that was the point where I went, okay, we're onto something here. This is working. I think, the last show we sold over 200 copies of my album, and the promoter came up to me at the end of the day and he said, "Mate, you just sold more CDs today than Bryan did, just so you know." And it was just, one of those moments where I went, okay, this is all starting to happen, and I think this is what I want to do. So it was pretty crazy.
Good old John Eales. Shout out to Ealesy.
Yeah, Mate, Mr. Nobody. Is that what they call him? Because he's
How's
one of the
any?
nicest blokes in the world. He is such a legend.
Sounds like a bloody good bloke. Anyone who, and I feel like it is quite rare in Australia where people, even just from different industries, will put out their hand to say, "How can I help you? Like, better improve your career." I find it's yeah, the complete
Especially
opposite
in
in some
sport.
instances.
Especially in
Definitely.
sport, because I think, I've got a lot of great mates that are, elite at their whatever their different chosen sport is. And I think we both appreciate each other because of the dedication and the hard work that goes into both things. And, I remember we did this gig for Matty Rogers, who played for the Wallabies and played
Yeah.
rugby league as well. And we were walking out to the stage, and he goes, "Shit, don't you get bloody nervous before you're about to go on stage?" And I'm like, "Mate, what about you when you go out and play for Australia, at Suncorp Stadium?" It's like, yeah, I think there's that mutual admiration, and it's a good thing.
So many interesting things about high achievers like yourself and also Matty Rogers, Johnny Els and stuff, from obviously the sacrifice, the work ethic, but also being able to hold it together while you're in front of, tens of thousands of people, which, that's something that a lot of people will never really get to experience. So that's something pretty wild. But I guess going back to even to that Day on the Green concert, had you gone all in on music up to that point, or were you, what were you doing? Because I did read somewhere or
Yeah.
listen somewhere that you were in as a travel agent as well, or working in the
Oh, yeah.
travel industry as well.
Yeah, so I got to a point where I sort of had to make a decision what I was going to do. Going back to like sport, I grew up playing a lot of sport as a kid, and I ended up becoming, pretty good at AFL footy. Growing up in Tassie, that's a religion down there. My dad was my high school footy coach, and Dad went on to coach the state under 16s team, and I made the squad, and went on to play in a premiership with a guy called Nick Rewalt, who ended up captaining Kilda. And
Yep.
I got to a point where it's like, is it going to be footy? Is it going to be music? And I was trying to do both. And I'd often do, and back in at that time, I was doing pub gigs up here in the Goldie. And it was funny because there was like, Amy Shark and Ricky Lee and, people like that were all doing the pub circuit and running into each other. This was before they all went on to do their own thing. And I would have played a game of footy on a Saturday, probably, nursing a sprained ankle or a corky, and then you get up on stage and try and do a gig for 4 hours. And it just got to a point where I just couldn't do both. So footy had to go. And and the same with, I had a full-time job at Flight Centre, and I used to love that. Always loved traveling, but again, it was sort of making that call. And I remember sitting down with Mum and Dad, having a coffee, and just letting them know that's what I was going to do. And they were both, straight away, they said, if you've got to give it a crack. And I'm very lucky because, some parents would probably tell you you're crazy and, you're giving up a full-time job and to chase this crazy dream of being a musician. But they were both amazing.
How important was your parents' support for you during that period?
Put it this way, I mean, I think most people really obviously respect their parents and their opinions. So if they had to push back and said that it was a stupid idea, it probably would have, swayed me. But I was extremely lucky, and I knew that if it didn't work out, I could always go back and get into travel again. But thankfully, that was 20 years ago, and I've not ever had to worry about it again. So I've been pretty lucky.
Yeah, that's unreal. And you mentioned obviously the support from your family, so your wife and your children. How do you manage, obviously work gets stressful from time to time. How do you manage the pressures and expectations of work and then manage to obviously go home to the home life and not allow that to sort of infiltrate there?
Yeah, that's a good question. I'd be nowhere without my family. My wife, my wife and my two kids, they've been incredibly important throughout the whole thing. And it's tough. It really is hard sometimes. I'm sure you find the same thing when there's stuff going on with Amy and Shepherd, and it's a pretty consuming sort of a project that you're involved with. So it does come back into the family life at times, but it's just trying to get that balance. And my wife's always a great sounding board and puts up with my shit a lot. I tell you now, she deserves an award, and I would do her head in. But she's the person that I go to first when it comes to getting advice and guidance. And, she's always got a very level head. And sometimes, we get emotionally invested in something good and bad. And you need someone with that level head to go, look, step back from the situation and think about it properly before you go off your head or do something you're going to regret. So yeah, she's always very good to talk to.
I hope Amy would say the same about me being the level-headed one.
She would, mate.
Yeah. But a question I wanted to ask you as well then. So from the music industry, we watch TikToks happening and there's artists that, and I'm not going to say anyone's an overnight success because we obviously know no one is, except for Bailey Zimmerman. When I heard his story at CMC, he's like, 2 years ago, I hadn't even written a song and I put it up on TikTok. And now he's Bailey Zimmerman. But do you ever find yourself feeling like things aren't happening fast enough?
Yeah, well, that's one of the biggest lessons that I've had to learn is patience, far out. And I often get asked, if I could give advice to anyone coming through, and that would be right up there. And it's often years down the track that you reflect back and go, oh, it actually makes sense now why it didn't happen back then, or I was pushing really hard, knocking on this door and it wouldn't open. And now I understand why. It's a real challenge because I'm, even to this very day, I'm very impatient. Like I want things to happen now. I can visualize where I'm going and what I want to do. Why are we not there quicker? Let's go. Come on. I'm always pestering Chuggy or Dan or Andrew, getting on the phone, just going, fellas, what's going on? Come on. And it's different. I guess you have to realize that, when you've got a team of people around you, they're looking after more than just your career, and they've got other stuff going on. Whereas you're in your own head 24/7, and you're thinking about all of these ideas and things you want to do. And yeah, it does get hard sometimes. But I guess on the flip side, part of the reason why I've been fortunate to get to where I am now is because I'm so driven, and I'm always wanting to go to that next level, and how can we improve here and, get better.
Yeah, it's a tough balancing act. Are there any specific things that you do in your day-to-day, I guess, routines or rituals, whether it be exercise? I don't know if you do any mindfulness stuff or even just writing music. Is there anything that is a go-to for you when you are feeling, I guess, whether it's overwhelmed because things aren't happening as quick or you don't know what's going on to a degree?
Yeah, 100%. I think, obviously looking after your health is critical. I remember when I first started out doing pub gigs, and I'd look at guys that had been doing it for years and, without naming any names. So these are just covers pub gigs, but they'd, be sitting there having a fag in all their breaks, smashing the beers. And you could see it was just destroying their appearance and how long they're probably going to be able to stay doing what they do. But for me, I'm really big on trying to look after myself, and I've got to exercise every day if I can in some way, whether it's going for a run or going to the gym or a walk or whatever. And I find that it just gets all of the shit out of your system, all of that head stuff that's going on and anxiety. It just makes you feel you've got a clearer head. And sometimes it's better if you get your exercise out of the way and then action the stuff that you've got to do that might be stressing you out, you're in a better space to do it. And also, trying to stay healthy with what you're eating on the road. It's sometimes difficult, but where I can, and actually, well, I did a podcast recently, and I got stuck into the boys in my band and said that their choices when we're on the road is sometimes not the greatest, and we'll find.
I did listen to that.
KFC or Macca's, and I copped it. The boys absolutely smashed me for that comment. So I better not say that. No, they're pretty good most of the time.
Mate, it is tough. When we were in Tamworth this year, like we found ourselves, you get home late at night some nights, and if you don't have a meal beforehand, it's like all you got left is a Portos or like McDonald's or something. So I went with McDonald's naturally. So
yeah, it's hard. It's hard. It really is. But I think, I probably used to stress out about that a bit too much back in the day, whereas now I'm like, okay, just try and get a balance. You're going to have a night where you sort of let yourself go a little bit, and it'll all come out in the wash. And yeah, it's not the end of the world.
Do you feel like it's changing in the music industry where a lot more musicians are starting to understand the importance of exercise and nutrition for longevity in your career and being able to perform at a high level? Because I feel like previously, and this goes the same for even athletes, maybe not associating so much in their creative side now, musicians maybe looked, this is a generalization, but saw gym as like, if you just want to be buff and whatnot, rather than as a way to look after your overall well-being and perform better.
Yeah. Oh, look, it's, if you look at anyone who's at the height of their game and, doing really well, there's not many of them that can get away with, going out every night and getting on whatever substance they might be able to get their hands on. It catches up with you pretty quick. And, we were talking off air at the start of the chat about Harry Styles is probably a great example. My wife and my kids are absolutely obsessed with him at the moment. I was lucky enough to go along. We actually caught his show here on the Gold Coast, and man, I was blown away. He's probably one of the best frontmen I've ever seen. And but just getting to know his routine and how he goes about it, it's really interesting. He's super conscious of looking after his health. And as soon as he finishes that last song in his set, he sprints out the back. He's in the van. He's off to his hotel. He's not going to any after parties. He's somehow asleep within an hour, which I do not know how the hell you do that, because that's my biggest issue. I'll finish a big show and I find it really difficult to mentally wind down, because you're on a bit of a high from the whole thing, and you're thinking it through, and then you make the mistake of bloody getting on social media and looking at all the videos that people have tagged you in, and you sort of it's not a good thing to do, but sometimes sometimes you get stuck doing that. But he's really healthy guy. And it's also interesting, James Corden is one of his best mates, and they went on a holiday.
Oh, is he?
Yeah.
He's a funny man.
He's a super funny guy. And he tried to keep up with Harry's health routine he thought, I'm going to do it for a week, and just, how hard could it be? And I think Harry obviously does a lot of mindfulness stuff and meditation and eats really well. And I think James lasted 24 hours, and then he was like, no, I can't do it. I can't keep up with this guy. So, yeah, it's interesting.
How is you mentioned social media there, and you also like the time frame over the last 20 years for you in the industry. How has social media started to sort of impact the music industry, and not only impact it from the reach that you can get and stuff, but also as a musician, do you ever feel like it's like you're a part-time, I'm always on this stupid bloody TikTok or Instagram, and then I'm also trying to be creative and write great songs that people love?
Yeah, I think we're in a moment in history, which is a really interesting time, because we're in this sort of balance of both. And whereas, when I first started out, it was a lot more about the music and the song and getting in a van and touring around the country. And some of that wasn't the greatest, because you could, tour for months and months on end and maybe just get a little bit further down the track. Whereas if you look at the way social media works now, and if you do it really well, you can achieve things so much faster and reach more people and get results in a quicker way if you do it properly. But then there's also part of you that it's a love-hate feeling or relationship that you have with social media, where you got to do it, but part of you wishes you didn't at the same time. And look, if I ever release a song just to appeal to a TikTok bloody algorithm, then I'm done. I am out. It's not going to happen. So yeah, I think, it's still great that one of the things that I've learned in the last couple of years is if you've got a great song, and Shepherd a great example of that as well. The song will do the talking for you. I had a track that I released called God Took His Time on You, which I remember when we were talking about the song, it's like, is it going to make the record? Should we put it out as a single? It's a bit controversial. You're talking about God here, and how are Australians going to react to this? And I just had this gut feeling. I just thought people are going to connect with this song, and as it turned out, it's been the biggest song of my career. So I've been pretty lucky.
Speaking of that, take away all the, I guess, the data and the stats around streaming and all of that around what, I guess, shows the most successful song for you as a writer of your music, what song has been the most, I guess, impactful or influential for you as an artist to write?
Jeez. That song, God Took His Time on You, changed my entire career, in the best way. But there've been lots of songs along the way that that have been really pivotal. I wrote another song just after my father-in-law passed away, and it's a really interesting story. Like, I was really close to him. It was like another best mate. We had a great relationship, and he passed away unexpectedly, and it was a huge shock to our entire family. And I remember the week after the funeral, I was going down to Melbourne to work on the album at the time, and we just had the service the week before, and Ted's favorite song was a song called Desperado by the Eagles, and he loved the Eagles. And a guy actually came and played that song at the service as a tribute to Ted. So remember that part of the story, because it's really important. So next, we're down in Melbourne in the studio with the boys that I work with, Michael Painter and Michael De Laurentiis, and they both said, and we normally start the day, we'll have a coffee and we'll sit around and just chat about ideas. And the boys said, how do you feel about writing a song as a tribute to Ted? And I said, I'd love to, but I don't know if I can go there yet, because it's a bit raw, but let's have a crack. And we tried to write a song, and it just didn't happen on the day. It wasn't flowing. We came up with an idea. I wasn't loving it. And so I thought maybe it's not going to happen. And we parked it for the day and left it. Came back the next day. Michael Painter came into the studio and he sat down at the piano. And of all the songs that he could have started playing, he played Desperado by the Eagles, which was, he didn't know that backstory. That was just happened to be the song that he sat down and started to play, of the thousands of songs that have ever been written. And I started, I lost the plot, and the boys like, what's going on? And I'm like, oh, you don't know. You don't understand. That song, was Ted's favorite song. And then he just started on this idea, and the song, it's the only time this has ever happened where it just wrote itself. The lyrics and the message, it was literally like he was getting a message through me to let the girls and the family know that everything's okay. And the song is called Set Sail, and it's a really different song. I don't get to play it a lot, but when I do play it, every time I play it at a show, someone will come up to me at the end of the night and share a story with me, and they've got a connection with it. And I get asked to play it a lot, but it's one of those tracks that's really, really hard to go there and play. So yeah, that one was just one of those songs that is really special, and a lot of people have connected with. So yeah.
I always find it interesting to hear that, because obviously, even with Sheppard, they're like, what's your favorite song? Surely it's Geronimo. And you're like, well, every song has meaning, and just because it's the most streamed or whatever isn't necessarily the reason why or the most impactful to an artist. So I always find it interesting to see where that sort of goes for yourself as well. What's your songwriting process? Because, dude, look, right now, for those who are watching, I'm sitting in, because we've just moved house, and I'm in a makeshift studio in the Sheppard studio, but it's also like just the biggest mess of all time, because we're all trying to share a space. And for me, it's like, actually, I just even forgot where I was going with that whole convo, because I was overwhelmed by all the stuff. So carry on.
Well, there are some pretty amazing plaques there in the background. It's really funny. This is a true story that you and the guys wouldn't even know. But I remember another pivotal moment where I was in the studio finishing not the Light It Up album, but the record before that, Town of a Million Dreams, and we were just getting to the point of finishing the album, and the boys gave me this bit of a lecture, and they were like, just fucking, you need to get your shit together with this next record, and you need to get the right team around you, because I think we really think this is going to be your biggest album that you've put out. And who would you love to work with? Who would you love to manage you if you had like your absolute top of your wish list? And because I'd been a huge fan of Sheppard and what they'd done with their career, and I knew that they were really good people and had a great team behind them, I said I'd love Michael Chugg to manage me, because I know he's a passionate, Australian music fan, and he's a great manager. And respected him a lot. And so the boy said, well, why don't you send Chuggy a couple of the songs and see if he's interested? So it all started out with just a couple of little emails, me nervously shitting my pants, emailing Chuggy saying, would you like to have a listen to these songs? And he came back and he said, I'd love to have a listen. And obviously like the tracks, and the rest is history. And, that's having someone like him finally someone that believes in what you're doing. That's a really important message, because for so many years, you'd get so many no's and people that would turn you down, or doors would close. And he was one of the first guys to actually see where it was all going and back me. And I'll never forget that.
What made you not quit every time you got the door sort of shut in your face?
Tell you another thing that you can probably relate to this as well, but the lessons that you learn growing up playing sport, it's a really powerful thing. AFL is all about determination and goal setting and not giving up. And if you get beaten one week, then you've got to bounce back the next. And and my dad was really great at teaching me a lot of those little life lessons. And I guess taking that into your music career is part of the reason. You're going to get told no, and if you believe in what you're doing, you'll get there. And sometimes you'll turn around a corner and you'll get a few yeses and a few lucky breaks, and then it sort of goes from there.
It's cool to hear that, because for people who are just tuning in, country music's really got some momentum behind it at the moment. And for those who are just sort of starting to tune into it, you've been this is your third week at number one. You knocked off Morgan Wallen, which is unreal. Well done.
Yeah.
And they're tuning in. They're probably seeing you and they're like, oh, this guy's, overnight success. They don't know the 20 years plus prior to that and all the doors that you've had shut in your face, the risks that you've taken and everything to get to that point. So it's really inspiring, and I appreciate you sharing that about you. But to go back to your songwriting process, what I was saying earlier is, I play a lot of guitar now because it's just like my therapy, really. But then I've been like, I'm going to try and start writing songs, and I cannot do it to save my life. So I'm just picking people's brains and like, what's your process, man? Because Amy's like, we do it like this, and I'm like, yeah, that's not going to work for me. So we'll see if we can get something different.
Everyone's different. And I was talking about this yesterday. I don't think there's a right or wrong way to go about it. I'm always carrying my phone, and, often I'll have an idea and I'll just record it into the voice memos on my phone. And it might be really horrible, but you might develop it down the track. It might just be a tiny little hook that might become a chorus, or a guitar chord progression that you think might be cool. I mean, Summer Nights was an idea that I had for a long, long time. And then, there's a couple of songs that I've just finished recording, which will be on the next album, that have probably been sitting in my voice memos for, a couple of years, where I've just been like, I know there's something there. I'm going to come back to it and we're going to finish that eventually. But I always start out generally with the music side of things and a melody. And often it'll be me humming or mumbling vocal lines that don't have any lyrics yet, but I can hear where they're going to be. And I'm really big on hooks and things that are going to keep a listener engaged. So eventually they'll become lyrics and you'll write the rest of the song, but that's how I do it. But then, I grew up listening to a lot of Elton John and have always loved his stuff. And he would work with a guy called Bernie Taupin, who would write the lyrics and send him the lyrics, and he'd get the lyrics and then write the song to the lyrics, which I don't know how the hell he does that. I couldn't do it. It's
phenomenal.
Yeah. So a lot of people work differently, but I'm really thinking about the music and those sort of hooks that are gonna, and that's another thing that Shepherd do really well, is they're great at writing really catchy hooks. They must do a similar thing.
Have you and Amy haven't collaborated on a song yet, have you? I say yet as if I'm expecting it to happen. Surely
we've done so. We actually, I remember we did some writing together a couple of years ago, and it was great because she came down actually in this room where I am now. And I remember my two daughters and my wife were all so excited to meet her, and we got a photo. I think the photo's still on the fridge upstairs in the kitchen when we met her, and it was great. But I know George has been hitting me up to do some more writing. I'd love to do some more, because they're great writers. So, and it's funny because when you listen to my stuff, there's a lot of pop elements to what I do as well, and that's one of the reasons it seems to be crossing over to commercial radio. It's got a bit of a crossover feel. It's country, but it's pop, and it's got a lot to do with the guys that produce my stuff too, because they're really good at that sort of sound.
Yeah, your song "Sparks Fly" is an absolute belter, and for me, it feels like it's in that country pop one. It's just so catchy, like so.
Yeah.
I'm like, because when I hear a good song, and I'll talk about Sparks Fly, I will play it until people just don't want to hear it anymore. And Amy, because I just have it on repeat, and I'll walk around, my phone in my pocket, or if I'll have my headphones up loud, she can always hear it. And she's like, "You got to stop doing that song." I'm like, if it makes me feel good, I'm gonna keep doing it, because I like to feel good.
That's what it's about. Actually, that particular song. I got to collaborate with two amazing writers over in the States. And a lot of the songs, Sparks Fly, God Took His Time on You, We're Good Together, Come Turn Me On, a lot of the tracks that have become the biggest songs that I've done so far and the most popular when we play live, I co-wrote with those exact same two people who are just amazing writers and are amazing human beings as well. So, yeah, it's funny.
Do you feel any pressure now with, I'm watching the music industry, and obviously I don't know too much about it because it's not my field, but I just watch with Shepard and Amy and everything. But do you feel now with like AI happening and social media and people's attention just constantly onto the next thing, do you feel pressure to like produce more music more regularly, or do you have like a schedule? And you don't have to go into detail about it, but I guess like a timeline you try to work with on how regularly you'd like to release music, or frequently, sorry?
Yeah, that's a really, really good point, and it's a real problem. I just remember, and maybe there's some people listening and watching this that can relate to this feeling. I remember growing up as a kid and treasuring when you'd saved up enough money to go down to the local record store and buy your favorite album. And back in my day, it was a CD, and I didn't have a lot of CDs, but I tell you what, the ones that I had, I freaking treasured them, and I'd listen to them from top to bottom, and have them stored away in my room in a special place on display, and it was a big deal. And the thing that I worry about now a little is a combination of all of that stuff you're talking about, social media and AI, and people's attention span is becoming so short, and they'll, when it comes to music, they'll gravitate to a song and they'll give it a week and go, yeah, I'm right into the latest Ed Sheeran track, or Lewis Capaldi, or Shepard, or Morgan Wallen, and they'll smash it for a week. But because they've got the luxury of millions of other songs that they can have at their fingertips, they'll just gravitate to the next one, and they'll keep on moving on. And I think that's an interesting thing, because the album is losing the effectiveness that it used to have, which is really sad. And even when it comes to releasing singles, Will Shepard would be the same. You'll try and release at least 5 or 6 singles before you drop your album, because once the album comes out, people move on pretty fast. You might have another 5 great songs on that record that you've poured your heart and soul into, and they don't see the light of day because people have moved on. Your Spotify's and Apple Music's and those sort of platforms, they move on as well. So it's a big thing, and in a way, it is a little bit sad that we don't value the song and records as much as we probably used to.
It is. I feel with you there. I remember getting my first album, and even when Luke Combs released Getting Old, I was like, I haven't done this for years, so I bought a bottle of whiskey, sat down in this room and listened to the song not on repeat, from song 1 to the end of the album, and it went for an hour and whatever. But it was just so cool to hear how albums piece together, because so guilty of just putting on a country playlist or any playlist and hitting shuffle, and half the time you don't even know who the hell you're listening to, but you're like, that was a good song. So yeah, I talk about it a lot with Amy, where I'm like, how do we get in this busy world now as an artist, how do we get people to attach the song to you when a lot of the time they're not even looking at what song they're listening to while they're going for a run, or so we're looking at like, how do you create a community, or it's just such an interesting time. So I love sort of picking people's brain on that, because I'm sure
it's building the story around the songs now, which is so much more important. There's a lot of artists that do it really well, and when you're like, at the moment we're leading up to another single that comes out. I think it's the 26th of May, and it's a song called Boys Like Me.
Yep.
And it's a really cool song and story about growing up as a kid in a wherever you're from, but just having that community of your mates that you've grown up with since you were young, that are still your mates now. They're the ones that you'll go out with on a Friday night and enjoy the weekend with, but they'll have your back when the shit hits the fan, and they're the first that are there by your side. And it's a lot about highlighting the simple life. And as I get a little bit older, I'm starting to appreciate that is so important. It's not about material things and having a fancy house and stuff it's drummed into us to believe that that's what happiness and life is all about. Forget about that shit, because when you're, on your deathbed, it's going to be the ones that are, your mates and your family and those that have been by your side throughout life that are the most important things. And that's what this song's about. And so we're sort of like building that story in the lead up to the song coming out, and sort of drip feeding little snippets of the video and just little bits and pieces that help people connect to the song, so that they get that anticipation, so that when the song does come out, they've already fallen in love with it, which is really, really cool.
I love that.
And there's a lot of artists that do that really well too.
Yeah, I think I agree with what you said there. I find a lot of music that I sort of take to one guy, Ray Fulcher, who's obviously writes a lot with Combsy, but he does it really well since he's sort of broken away from just being a songwriter. Now he's taken up his own solo career as an artist, and watching how he links stories with his Instagram is just, I'm like, Amy, I didn't even like this song before because I listened to it. And then when I watched him post a reel with it telling a story, I was like, I fucking love that song now just because of the reel. It's wild. Man.
I'll tell you now, the latest Lewis Capaldi single. Don't watch the music video because it'll rip your heart out. It's like, man, holy crap! Talk about telling a story, and it's full on. But that's a great example of that song, and that clip has just gone viral all over social media because he's been able to tell a story and shoot a clip and connect with an audience. And
he's a funny man, Ray. Not Ray, but
how good is he?
He's just so funny.
I just love him. I love how real, and you know what? There's so much room out there for more people like him who are just what you see is what you get, warts and all. All of his flaws and his mistakes, he doesn't give a shit, and everyone loves him for that. It's not, and that's one of the things that I've learned too is just be yourself. Throughout my career, and if you have to develop a character or a facade or an appearance because you think that's going to help you get success, then it's not the way to go. It wears out pretty quick.
That's definitely one of the benefits of the social media. Like if you only had access to, for example, if I lived in Toowoomba and I was a musician, I only had access to people in Toowoomba, your playing field's not that big. So maybe you do have to sort of create a bit of a character to get the most, I guess, bang for your buck and audience. But now we've got the internet, let's just assume there's half the world on there. So 3 billion people who have got access to you. If you be yourself, you're going to find enough people who love your music that you can build a sustainable career around it.
Yeah,
but
100%.
We were speaking about goalposts earlier in it. And obviously that initial one was just to have your name on that chalkboard at the pub.
Yeah.
For yourself now, you've accomplished a lot of stuff. I wasn't going to say it all, but obviously there's always the next part, which is where I wanted to go with this. What's next for you? What are you striving towards at the moment?
Oh man, there's always new goals and things that you want to achieve. I've always had a connection with America. I've been going back and forwards over there since I was 16. I did a student exchange program at the end of high school in Colorado, and after that I fell in love with the place, and then went back and worked in a summer camp as one of the camp counselors with all the
Yep.
kids, and did sports for a summer, and it was just the dream job. And then I fell in love with obviously country music, and I've been going back and forwards to Nashville for a lot of years since that point. And every time I go back over, you're a little bit further down the track, and you've ticked a few more boxes and met a few more people. And I guess the next big goal is giving it a crack and trying to see how we go over there. And it is a little bit like winning the Tats Lotto, but if you don't have a crack, you'll never know. And I've been lucky enough to already do quite a bit over there. And a couple of months ago when Keith Urban was on tour, it was one of these lucky moments where I was sitting at a surf club with my mate before the show, just having a quick counter meal and a beer. And we got a text message, and it said, if you can get to the show in the next 20 minutes, we'll get you backstage to meet Keith. And so we scoffed our food, jumped in an Uber, did a quick PCR test, and got backstage. And we got to meet Keith, and he actually, I couldn't believe he knew who I was, knew my name, knew I just won the ARIA, gave me this big hug, and gave me this really great chat for about 10 minutes about, what my goals were, what do I want to do next, and just talking to him and getting some advice. For him to give you the time of day was amazing. So it'd be great if we could tick a few more boxes and get back over there.
No, you're playing CMA this year, aren't you?
Yeah, CMA Fest. Yep, in June.
Mate, that's flipping huge.
Yeah,
that's
that is Keith.
monstrous.
And, like all your Morgan Wallens and Luke Combs and Chris Stapletons and Lainey Wilsons, all these guys that are just killing it. That's the holy grail of country music festivals to be part of, and we were lucky enough to be invited to go over. So we're going to give it a red hot crack and take the show over there. And Chuggy's coming over as well, and see how we go. But yeah, it's going to be fun.
How do you feel? I won't keep you too much longer, but knowing that your name is up there with all the people that you just listed off, knowing where you started this journey to where you are now, like, how do you feel about yourself now?
Oh, I wouldn't have dreamt in a million years some of the stuff that's happened, especially in the last 12 months or so, it was going to happen. But I guess it's really important to stop and reflect on where you've come from and where you are, and be really grateful, because you never take it for granted, because it can be, COVID's a great example. It can be taken away pretty quickly. And I just think you got to enjoy the ride and love what you do, because as soon as you start hating it, you don't want to be doing it anymore. And so I still love everything about the whole thing, and getting on stage and performing is my favorite thing to do. So, if I can keep doing that, and the bigger the crowd, the better.
And where can people see some upcoming shows? Obviously, I'll link all of this as well, but is there any off the top of your head that, aside from Perth this weekend? But
yeah, oh man, we've got a bunch. We're doing Gympie Muster, Savannah in the Round, Denny Ute Muster. We're going to announce some big shows for Brisbane, Sydney, and Melbourne later this month. So there's a scoop. We haven't announced it yet, but we're going to do bigger venues and a bigger show. So that's going to be announced pretty soon. And heaps of shows coming up.
And the new single's coming out what date? The 6th?
26th of May.
26th of May.
Boys Like Me. And I'm excited about that one.
And do you have a pre-save link? I'll put in the bio for everyone.
Oh yeah, I do.
Yeah, I'll grab that off you. But for everyone listening, Casey, once again, thank you so much for coming on. It's been awesome to sort of get your inside scoop of how you've gone from where you were 20 years ago, or just the guy from Tasmania who had a dream to just get your name on that pub, to now where you're winning some of the biggest awards in Australia, playing some of the biggest festivals around the world, which is exciting, mate. And I look forward to continue one cracking a beer with you this weekend, but watching your journey of success as you really pioneer the Australian country music industry globally, which is exciting. For everyone listening who wants to follow Casey's work, listen to his music, I've put the Spotify links below, the pre-save for the new single, and the website with all the tour dates, because he does have an absolute rockin' show. I'll get some behind the scenes footage that you'll see all over the socials, so you can get a little glimpse for it.
Thanks, mate. And beers on the weekend. I'm looking forward to that. I'm glad we finally got to make this happen. It's been awesome.
Yeah, thank you.